Hello and welcome back to Talking Insights, the podcast series from Esomar. I'm your host, Srikar, and throughout the series we're taking a closer look at the key topics of today, taking a step beyond the world of research and insights to tackle the big issues of our time. Our sector deals with understanding and predicting the world that we live in. So let's look beyond the numbers and dive into the most important conversations of today that will shape our tomorrow. AI is touted by many as the innovation that will change the course of human history. After all, creating an intelligence that can rival that of a human being, perform complex tasks autonomously, and learn over time has been the subject of science fiction speculation for decades. But finally, it seems we are on the verge of the AI revolution. But just how close are we really to seeing the rise of a true AI? And does AI necessarily have to be something that is used to automate repetitive or pattern-based activities? What creative possibilities does AI offer us? How can we use AI to help society? And what questions still remain to be answered about AI's impact on our societies and civilizations? Joining me today to discuss the lesser-known applications of AI is Zeno Koenigs, a creative technologist and project lead of AI technologies at XR based in Amsterdam. Zeno is working on the boundary line between XR and AI, working with a variety of stakeholders to develop responsible AI-based technologies and advanced immersive experiences. He's also the co-founder of Pt.1, an Amsterdam-based volunteering initiative, and has an extensive background in creative consultancy and content creation. Zeno, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hi, Srikar. Good to be here.
So just to kick things off, from your point of view, if you had to sum up your dream for artificial intelligence as a quick elevator pitch, what would it be?
Right. So AI or AGI, preferably AGI by the time we get there. I kind of see it as this hopefully a shepherd, some sort of sidekick that can assist human beings along their journey throughout every day-to-day possibilities, and maybe even from a transhumanist point of view, something that will guide us through the universe while we can just live our humanly lives.
So AI kind of takes care of the day-to-day, the kind of minutiae detail, and humans, we as a species can focus on the bigger picture, the big questions.
Exactly. And sometimes we can consult with our AGI as something that will, guide us through all the steps that we needed to do. Right. So not just wait, let me rephrase this.
It's a big topic. I know it's hard sometimes to kind of condense these thoughts into one sentence.
Exactly. So it's an AGI will basically help us, and will also make some decisions for us, and sometimes it will reflect on decisions that we've made, and therefore almost as if we have our own personal little psychologist next to us, or somewhat an extended consciousness, right? So if you'd be, for example, in politics, you'd have an AGI giving you a certain we would say puinwaaier in Dutch, but it will show you to what extent or what collateral damage or what collateral effect that your intentions will have, because you have an AGI that does all these minute calculations right from the get-go that you start doing something. Basically, this is how I see AGI in the future being a shepherd to our own personal being, but maybe also to our society.
So just before we continue, now using the terms AI and AGI here. Now, this is something I'm familiar with from Max Tegmark's book, Life 3.0. Just to kind of sum up for our listeners, what is the difference between an AI and an AGI, so an artificial general intelligence?
Right. So AI at the moment, it's focusing on one specific task, and we repetitively learn it to become better at it. But it also shows some flaws. While an AGI will basically sum up all the AIs that we've made, and we'll be able to, hopefully reflect on its own actions, and we'll be able to teach it what it's done wrong and what it has to change to become better. And therefore, it's more general. It's something that's actually has the intelligence that we hope to relate to in the near future, while a normal AI would basically just know how to talk with us about cats, or like something minute that we've taught it.
Yeah, so I think one of the examples that's given in the book is, if we're trying to create an intelligence here that's similar to human beings, we tend to know a little bit about a lot of things, as opposed to having just incredibly in-depth knowledge about just one specific thing.
Right. Yeah.
I think,
exactly.
one of the areas, of course, I think that applies to most is creativity and the creative arts, which at the moment we still see as something that's very human-driven and something that a machine couldn't possibly replicate, the kind of creative impulses that a human being has. And I know this is an area that you work in. So you work in a more creative-driven approach to AI. So how do you see your background, previously in design and in creative spaces? How does this shape your approach to developing AI solutions?
Right. So at the moment, we're seeing a lot of AGI or AI, actually, in this case, AI-backed projects where we use the scraping of the internet or certain databases to either enhance the work that you're doing. For example, if it's data-driven, you use an AI to work at a much faster pace, collecting on a much broader range of data points or data sets to get an output, which, like 5 to 10 years ago, we'd be having to collect all this data ourselves and then put them in spreadsheets and therefore getting a data-driven answer. But you can also use it on a more visual scope where we've seen this project, which is about architecture, and then they learn this AI reading on all these different forms of architecture, like all these blueprints. And then it starts creating shapes which fit within certain areas, which otherwise, you'd be having to draw this yourself. But now you can just see how on some semi-organically shape this sort of creates a very cool input and output of the certain space that you have in mind, with the parameters of, like, it has to be, for example, you need to have this much space to move in, or you need to have a certain amount of height, etc. So this is AI basically creates new perspectives on things that we've otherwise or maybe not have come about, because we ourselves have been learning certain ways and have our own patterns and traits. And then AI just goes there. It's like, hey, what about this? And from a creative point of view, it gives us a lot of new insights and perspectives.
Yeah, I think coming from a creative space, we often talk about inspiration, and every kind of creative idea has its genesis somewhere back in time. I think it's rare that something is quite so spontaneous. So in this instance, it seems AI is essentially able to take far more of those influences and far more of those inspirations into account than any one human ever could. To look into this further, so I've taken a look at some of the work that's been done at XRBase. Can you talk us through, let's say, some of your favorite projects that you've worked on in the past, or perhaps creative applications that you want to explore in the future as well that haven't yet been tackled?
Right. So at the moment, I'm working on getting subsidized for a flag project, I call this. I want to use artificial intelligence for scraping data from different countries and creating, which will then, on a visual term, create flags that are interactive to the country's certain output or input aspects that's going on within the country. So, for example, I'm doing one on gun violence within the United States, but also one on Japan with the amount of the birth rate versus the gray out of society, right? And there's like all this data which is being published by either governmental institutions or basically non-profit organizations who scrape this, or they basically put all this data online, and then we use an AI to sort through this data and give a hopefully a most detailed depiction of this within a flag, right? So the flag will basically reflect the current state of a country within a certain parameter. And the idea is to use this as a dialogue opener, or like creating a moment of dialogue within the viewer of this flag. So that's a project that we're working on right now. And in the past, we've done some deepfake videos, which is of course a very interesting topic. And the idea is that this is part of an exhibit for Marine Museum in Amsterdam or in North Holland. And well, the idea, of course, is that you want to start this conversation about what is deepfake and where's it going and how does this change how does this change our current view of the world, right? And because this is a museum, we've done this in a historical viewpoint. So it's about the Cold War, and it's a deepfake video about Reagan. And it kind of shows that it's about how fake news can create certain fallouts, right? This is what this exhibit is about, and we're going to go in depth in also explaining how, we changed an historical video, but then we're going to talk about how does cyber war and the current cyber war, which is, of course, it's somewhat like an extended Cold War at the moment, where there's I think that's called active measures, where we, the public, we don't know what's going on, but there's this vast amount of fake media, fake news, and all this kind of stuff to just sort of break up democracies and all this kind of stuff. So it's very interesting how to talk about these things, especially from a educational point of view, because it's very important that we know and we can tell or find telltales when there's fake media going around. And it's getting harder and harder because we have AIs learning how to make the best deepfakes, and then we have AIs learning how to basically recognize deepfakes, right? So it's this sort of Cold War battle between AIs trying to fool each other.
And I mean, when you say something like that, it sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, and it's crazy to think now, we're living in a time now where this, as you said, this is the reality. You may not know it, but in the background, this is going on in a kind of an online battlefield almost. I do want to come back to what you mentioned there in terms of the deep fakes and identifying fake news, the kind of societal consequences. Just to kind of touch back on the creative space that we were discussing before. Now, I'm sure everyone's come across these stories about AI-generated music that's been used to trick music students, or artwork that's generated by pumping enormous amounts of data into an AI. Do you personally think we're going to see more of this in future? We're going to see more AI in the artistic and creative space, whether it's music, whether it's paintings or cinema, whatever else. Do you think AI is going to start playing a greater role in that?
Yeah, I think so, actually. Definitely, because it's super interesting to see from a creative point of view, right? We suddenly are gifted this little black box, right? And I bet most people have been in brainstorms, and sometimes you just hit this blind wall of nothingness where you're right in the middle of a brainstorm, or you have this writer's block. You just don't know. Where should the story? Okay, so for example, you're writing a book or a script, and you're like, okay, so I'm writing the story. This is my protagonist, and he's doing all this kind of stuff. And then after 6 pages, you hit this mental writer's block, or you're just out of inspiration. And then here we have this little black box, which you have trained on a number of different genres, or maybe the specific genre that you are working on yourself. And you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to give it a couple of cues, and I'll just see what comes out of it. And then this little black box will probably help you get out of your writer's block, move forward. You might even incorporate some of the weird twists that it's come up with, because if you just take a completely AI written script, it's just really weird. But if you use some of it, or you make it work, because of course you can make anything work these days, then it becomes very interesting, right? And also from an artistic point of view, it is quite interesting to see how we would then interpret the script written by an AI. How would we, from a creative point of view, how would we interpret this as a film or a music video or anything, right? So it's like we have this new little brainstorm partner on the table, which will ultimately give us way more new insights into our own creative process.
Yeah, it's interesting to use the phrase black box then, 'cause I think black box is one of those words that, or one of the terms that is used quite a lot when it comes to discussing the ethics of AI, and especially the accountability of AI as well. So if we move away from the kind of creative spaces of AI and we look at some of the ones that have a direct impact on people in day-to-day lives, AI-driven decision making, the black box becomes a problem, doesn't it? Because at the end of the day, you're giving it, all these different inputs. A decision comes out, but the problem is at the moment we're not quite sure how those decisions are being reached. So how do you think we can introduce this accountability into AI-based decision making as we go forward and as it becomes more integrated in our day-to-day lives?
Yeah, well, maybe we can make this modular black box, right? So then as soon as we've built a part of the black box, we're like, okay, this works, this is safe, this is steady, then we can add another part of the black box, creating some sort of an architecture within the black box of an AI. Because you're right, there's a lot of inclusivity problems and of course the bias problems of an AI, where it's basically an AI trains itself on the reflection of what it sees on the world right now. And of course, our own world right now is it's completely biased. It's completely unbalanced and in some countries even unhinged right now. So yeah, absolutely. There is this, the thing is that this AI basically gives us a reflection of our own society, right? So it trains on what it sees, and if there's like a predominance of a certain aspect that it trains on, because that's basically what it sees. So, for example, if you use it to train on the average, if you let an AI look at YouTube as an average of what humanity is all about, then AI might actually start to think that we are all half cat humans or whatever. So it's almost as if you want to create an AI, you need to take the AI by the hand and create the AI within a world which we've created ourselves, which is a world that we think is just and equal, right? So just keep the AI away from the internet until it becomes somewhat of a trained AI in some sense. Yeah.
Yeah, the internet as a microcosm of humanity is perhaps not the best representation of
definitely not
that we can be these days.
Especially since I think there's still 48% of the world population which isn't even hooked up to the internet right now. So yeah, it's the black box part is difficult. On the other hand, we train an AI to sort of, the logic within an AI is probably based on our own logic board, right? Within our own brain. Monkey see, monkey do. And I think that we humans, we are able to forget, and we are able to readapt. We get re-educated if we lose a job, or if the certain, for example, you worked at a factory, but the factory is completely being automatized or automated by robots, and then you need to be re-educated to do a different kind of job, right? So in a way, there need to be certain little back doors or some parameters that we can adjust within AIs, so it doesn't have to be a completely.
So it's not purely singularly goal oriented, but it's something more adaptable.
Well, it shouldn't be linear, and then we should be able to also reteach or tell it to forget some certain aspects and go like, oh, but this is something you did wrong. Now you have to recalibrate and study a bit more of this, right? So you basically need to create this sort of AI high school system where you have, because otherwise it's almost a waste if we throw away every AI that's being trained, right? I mean, I don't know. It's so much energy and time that goes into it.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned, of course, looking at these biases that we can imprint on AIs, and going back to what you mentioned previously about deep fakes and these fake videos. I think when we speak of the internet, that is a real key issue nowadays, isn't it? It's when so much of us rely on our information coming from online, coming from, whether it's social media, whether it's news websites. And when you have these increasingly sophisticated AIs and these deep fakes, whether it's being used to create them or identify them, then in the end of the day, humans kind of get caught in the crossfire, do you not? Because we don't quite think on the same level as an AI. So what issues do you see arising from this, where we as humans, we as individuals, are getting information from both sides that is not created by human beings?
Yeah, it's quite difficult, especially as I'm on Instagram a lot. So many fun memes going around, and then sometimes you read the comments, and then you're really inclined to think like, well, I hardly doubt that people actually even think these days. Where we almost prefer not to think. Where it's I mean, life would be nice if you don't have to, right? Sometimes thinking is such a difficult burden to bear. But yeah, we are somewhat caught in the crossfires, and I think. But then I go back to the educational point of view. Like, we really need to still educate kids to keep asking questions and keep looking at the source. Like, is this something that you can rely on? Is this true? Because it's very nice. It's very easy, but also somewhat comforting to just want to accept the information as given to you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we go to school and information is given to us, and well, we basically assume it's right because it's school, and we trust that the teachers that are being hired by the board of directors from the school have passed all their exams and know what they're teaching us, right? So if we trust all those aspects in life, then why can't we trust all the other aspects in life? Why doesn't suddenly, as soon as you leave school, why does it suddenly become something that we can't trust anymore? Like, it's filled with advertising and marketing schemes and, well, AIs and deep fakes and propaganda and whatnot, right? So it's even in school, we need to ask ourselves the right questions. And I think this whole ask for yourself and keep asking has to be, I think it's become more important than actually learning how to do math, or almost to learn about, well, I mean, history is very important, but there's like all these aspects in high school or in school anywhere where these days people will just look the answers up online anyway. So I think it's more about how to use your brain, like from for example, design thinking process, learn how to design think, or learn how to investigate, right? So it's like we have to reassess the way that we're being taught how to think, rather than the stuff that's being taught.
Absolutely. It's I think back sometimes to my own kind of high school education and things that I learned. Let's say you're having geography lessons and you're learning about glacial valleys, and I think, okay, it's interesting, but in day-to-day life now, maybe something like critical thinking would have been a better use of the time. But at the end of the day, when we were in high school, could we have seen the developments that we are seeing now? Even 10 years ago, could we have predicted, looking forwards, the level of misinformation, the level of the kind of deepfakes that are out there? Do you think there was warning signs along the way, or is this something that is really just unprecedented?
Looking back from my own perspective, I remember being in high school and the first color screen flip phone came out, and I was just completely raveled by the idea that we were soon to be living in a James Bond world. And I remember getting the first iPhone and jailbreaking it so I could play games on it, because of course the first iPhone didn't have any games. But just the fact that you were able to see your location on Google or Apple Maps with a 5-meter variable, which has now become I think 1 or 30 centimeters. That was just thrilling, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think. Well, I mean, I bet there has been trend watchers with twice my age who were looking way past beyond the more consumer part of this new technology paradigm that we were entering. But no, I didn't see any telltales about how we were going to be we were going to be grabbed by the boo-boo by technology. No, I was way too. I didn't see that far ahead back at that time, actually. But right now, I think it's very wise for both governments and, well, especially governments, but to also, really look at think tanks to see how they can be ahead of the curve, and also create a new generation of kids that are taught to be ahead of the curve, because it's very.
Yeah.
We are going to see technology progressing faster and faster. I mean, we all know the law of Moore, and at a certain point, we are not keeping up with the speed that computational power has. I mean, Japan has just released the fastest supercomputer in the world, which does about, like, I think 550 teraflops, which is just insane, right? So it's really like teaching people how to think and how to be. I think that's the only. Well, I mean, the only cure, I wouldn't say cure, but the only sort of remedy.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe, defense or remedy in a world that we're entering. Like, as I said before, when we have this AGI or this AI, which will be our shepherd or our chaperone, maybe chaperone is a better resemblance, because I don't know. Have you seen the series Altered Carbon?
Not personally myself, no, but
Right, well, okay,
how it fits in, yeah.
So they have an AI here, which then it's like a holographic AI, and it follows you around, and it has a personality, and its personality also becomes, if it stops booting up, or if it doesn't update or whatever, it gets this sort of amnesia, or it's this, it starts flating. It just stops working. And then when it's working, it really behaves as your chaperone, right? And that's what I hope an AI or AGI will eventually be. But we do need to know how to be better humans, right? We need to know how to still not believe everything an AI will tell us. It's almost as if everyone will have this little kit that you're teaching how to be your best chaperone, especially in the first 10 to 20 years, probably. I hope. If it goes way faster than that,
yeah, absolutely.
Then I don't think that we actually stand a chance.
Well, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of our discussion with Zeno, and stay tuned for part 2 coming next week with more insights on AI, what we can learn from science fiction, and how AI can harm or help humanity's future. If you have any ideas for the series, or you'd like to join as a guest, then please do not hesitate to contact us via email at podcast@esomar.org. As always, thank you very much for listening, and I do hope you'll join us again next time.